Hey folks, it's Nate. Thanks for joining me at the art table again today. Now, I know what you're all thinking. You're looking at the screen and you're seeing a tweet and you're thinking, oh, it's going to be one of those videos. But don't worry, it's not Twitter drama. This is just the jumping off point for a discussion I want to have about labels. Everybody loves labels. Everybody loves debating them and asking whether they fit or not. But today, I want to talk specifically about the utility of labels for creators versus the audience. I'm taking this Iron Age question that Matt Krotz asked as a jumping off point because I think it really illustrates the dichotomy between how a creator looks at a label and how the audience looks at a label. Now, before we get into that too much, I want to make it clear that I'm not picking on Matt here. His question is a very important one, but only when asked from one perspective. Matt is looking at the Iron Age Comics label as a marketing technique. He is looking at it in much the same way many people looked at the label Comicsgate about 4 years ago. And he's looking at it with all the history and baggage that came out of the Comicsgate fiasco as part of his lens. If you're not familiar with everything that happened surrounding Comicsgate, let me wind the clock back all the way to 2016. Around this time, or perhaps in late 2015, a bunch of people who talked about comics on YouTube came up with the Comicsgate hashtag as part of a campaign to lobby for better comics. The idea was that you would use this tag to show the comics you were actually buying and to show that you supported those comics and not other comics that you considered to be not as good. Now, the point of Comicsgate was to show what the audience supported. However, a number of people in the comics industry and in the comics journalism industry chose to characterize Comicsgate as a label against comics rather than as a label in favor of comics. A battle for the meaning of the label was fought for about 2 years until in 2018, people began trying to make their own comics. And they used the label Comicsgate to refer to these comics as well, hoping that the idea of boosting mainstream comics would carry over to their independent projects. In this, they by and large succeeded. For a year or so, comics that were labeled as Comicsgate were pretty successful in getting funded. A number of poor business decisions and fallings out in cliques resulted in the Comicsgate label losing its cachet. It was no longer about making good comics that people loved, and it became a lot about interpersonal drama, failure to fulfill promises, and exploitation of consumer goodwill. I know there are many people out there who still have fond memories of the important pro-comic side of Comicsgate, and they still use the label with that idea in mind. I don't hold this against them, but I do not use it myself for many of the reasons that other people have become disillusioned with the title. Now, I don't really know Matt outside of our Twitter interactions and occasionally seeing him on live streams with my buddy Narwhal. He's a very shrewd guy, he does good work, and he is a gifted storyteller. I don't know what exactly led him to asking these questions about Iron Age comics, but he seems to have seen what happened with the Comicsgate label. I know he's been around for at least the last 4 years of the label's existence, and I believe he is justifiably reticent of seeing a new label thrown around that he believes will undoubtedly get co-opted by the same kind of misbranding and cliquishness that destroyed the Comicsgate label. I don't blame him for reaching these conclusions. Any creator who rapidly adopts the Iron Age label is going to be sailing in very dangerous waters. I have seen the kind of implosion that comes with that kind of labeling afflict many different creators, not just the creators in Comicsgate. And yet, labels are very important to creators. They are one of the ways we convey to our audience what is most important to us. When a creator labels himself a sci-fi writer, he tells his audience that he is very interested in the future of humanity and what technology will do to that future. Technology is the most common through line in science fiction, but lesser through lines can include other concepts such as exploration, discovery, and contact with new things. These are all themes that science fiction explores and thus will be important to a science fiction writer. So adopting that label is a good way to make sure your audience understands those things about you, both as positive affirmations of what you think and in contrast with writers in another genre, such as the thriller. That's not to say the writer cannot adopt another label. You can, in fact, be a sci-fi thriller writer. The connotations that come with writing in the thriller genre do not necessarily go hand in hand with writing in the sci-fi genre. So if you are very deliberate about the labels you take, then you can communicate very important information very quickly to your potential audience. When Matt Krotz looks at the Iron Age label, he is asking himself, what information am I communicating to my audience about the work that I do? That is a legitimate question to ask, especially about a new label that has just recently been coined and which nobody really agrees on the definition of yet. And of course, people who have been burned by badly used labels in the past are going to be doubly wary of adopting new labels in the future, which is a natural reaction. However, there is another side to this coin. Actually, there's probably a lot of additional sides to this issue, but really only one I want to discuss here. And that is the relationship between the audience and a label. A fan of science fiction is not just saying something about an author when they say they enjoy science fiction stories. They are also saying something about the kinds of things they like and about the kinds of things that they would like to see. When Comicsgate was first coined, it was not a label for creators. It was a label for the audience, specifically created so that they could label things they enjoyed and wanted to see more of. One of the greatest sins of Comicsgate as a creators movement was the annihilation of a label for consumers to use to label things that they enjoyed and wanted to see more of. That was the original point of the term. And frankly, the co-opting of that term to transform it into a marketing gimmick is one of the things that upset me the most about Comicsgate in 2018 and 2019. It's one of the reasons why I stopped following most of the channels that use the label. In fact, if you go back and watch my earliest videos, this is one of the things that I harped on in those videos. I did not think it was an ethical marketing technique to take a label about consumer approval and transform it into a label for your product. Audiences need labels to help them discuss a subject. Those labels are always going to exist. And while I think it's important that those labels eventually get well defined, like the label of a genre is, for example, when they are first coined, they are going to be rather amorphous. It takes time for the exact meaning of a term to be nailed down in general parlance. I think that's fine. In the case of Iron Age media, I think that nailing down exactly what people mean as they discuss the Iron Age will be part of what gets the audience invested in the discussion around the Iron Age and how it relates to independent media more broadly. That said, I only intend to use the term as a member of the audience and not as a creator. On this channel, I only label reviews with the Iron Age term. I will never use it to discuss any of my own fiction products. I will never use it to discuss any of the storytelling techniques that I wish to bandy about on this channel. If I am indeed a member of the Iron Age movement, that will be for other people to decide. I'm not going to market any of my media as Iron Age stories. I don't think that's very useful. It only really provokes conflict, which can give your marketing a flash in the pan, but rarely leads to long-lasting success. I would encourage Matt and any other creators who are skeptical of the Iron Age label to take the same approach. Let other people stick you in that category if they want. If it doesn't fit, people will figure that out very quickly. And if it doesn't mean anything at all, which can very easily happen, as we saw with Comicsgate, well then, let them stick meaningless labels on you. It's not something to worry about. Blake Northcott was labeled as Comicsgate, and she continued to do her own thing to great success. I wouldn't characterize her as Comicsgate in the past or in the present, and she continues to succeed quite well as a storyteller. The label will only have power over you if you want to use it for something. Therefore, if you are skeptical of a label, Allow the audience to use the label as they see fit and renounce any power it has over you. Now, it's true, there is an important relationship between the creator and the audience, a relationship that I refer to as the story circle. However, in the shared process of creation that makes up the story circle, there are some parts that the creator is responsible for, and there are large parts which the creator is not. The reaction of the audience and critics is one of those parts where the creator is not particularly responsible. If, in taking part in the story circle, audiences or critics choose to apply a label to a creator, I think that is a legitimate role that they have in the creative process. Therefore, if someone comes to me and asks me, "Are you an Iron Age creator?" I will answer, "That is not for me to decide. If you think that I am, make the case to the rest of the audience." But it is the audience who determines the ages of media, not the creators. But who knows? Maybe I'm way off base there. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. There's a like button and a subscribe button down there. You can use those as you see fit, and I'll talk to you later.